Data can be anything for agriculture, for mortgages, for international shipping, for logistics. All of this data we already have been generated today by satellites in different spectrums. We just need to apply AI to these images to answer the questions which we have today.
You're a physicist turned investor. So tell us about one challenge that you've identified, or you identified many years ago, perhaps as a physicist, that you want to solve or you feel the world should solve.
The thing which we don't understand today is what is our universe is made of. We don't understand 99%. We don't understand what's the dark energy, what's dark matter.
Alexandra, thank you so much for joining me. So, you were saying earlier that some of the problems that we are trying to tackle on Earth, the solutions would be found in space. So tell us about how you're looking at this whole opportunity, particularly as a venture capital investor, and what you've seen in the last few years that you've been working particularly in the space sector.
Thank you so much for having me. One of the things which I mentioned today is, so we're kind of reaching the point when we produce more chips than we can actually plug into the grid, right? So the energy crisis. So what will happen with AI, right? And what will happen with data centers? So space, of course, can address that. So we can build data centers in space where we have unlimited 24/7 energy supply from the sun. We don't need to worry about atmosphere, about clouds, about rain, about night, right? So we can basically use all of this energy in space. So that's one. Second one is about gravity and microgravity. So many materials and many pharmaceutical products today, which we cannot build here because gravity collapses the molecules or create defects in the material, we can build better. Think about organoids, think about new material, optic fiber, think about semiconductors, compound crystals. That all can be built in low Earth orbit in much better quality, much better, much less defects. But at the same time, think about the data which we can use to address some of the decisions which we need to make. Data can be anything for agriculture, for mortgages, for international shipping, for logistics. So all of this data we already have been generated today by satellites in different spectrums, starting from infrared to hyperspectral to SAR to optical images, right? So we just need to apply AI to these images to answer the questions which we have today.
So let's talk about data centers specifically. So tell us about what the physical dimensions of this whole effort are. I mean, how do you ship? I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. So how do you take data centers up there? And how do they work? What is the size and scale that we're talking about?
So as of today, there's no data centers in space. It's that's probably, you can see Elon Musk recently announced SpaceX IPO, and there's SpaceX merged with XAI. And the idea here is like, if you want to build the next and train the next level of LLM, or at some point AGI, then we need to have bigger, more powerful compute, right? And we are reaching the point where we can't build in Earth, so we need to build it in space. So in terms of I can see probably around 20 different projects apart from SpaceX, and all of the big companies, including Blue Origin, OpenAI, I think they all will be thinking about, okay, what's happening with us? We've seen Eric Schmidt recently acquired or invested in relativity space. So that's a connection between DeepMind, Google, and space as well. And we know many people investing in launch in data centers in space. So what we see, we need to think about the engineering design. The main problem is how do we do heat radiation? Because there is no air, there's no liquid around. So how do you actually, radiate the heat into the vacuum? This is unsolved engineering issue. We see multiple designs being proposed. Probably we'll see 20 to maybe 30 different designs. We'll try, lose money, try again, and build and kind of, I think at some point we'll have a design which actually work. As of today, we have edge computing in space. We have like powerful satellites. So, for example, you don't need to send every single image back if there is no change. For example, if you're taking a picture of the same tree and there's nothing happening, why would you do that? So AI on the edge computing can filter out the images if there is no change and only send, for example, 5% of images back. So that's already happening. For me, data centers is just an evolution of that. It's not a revolution.
So what's the revolution then when it comes to space and solving problems for Earth?
I would like to see something like we work in space, labs where different companies can go and book a small lab and say, I want to produce here a better vaccination, a cancer treatment, a stem cells. maybe a new material to fix some of the energy issues which we have in space. So massive in scale in space manufacturing, and everyone is using, kind of anyone can, any moment can go on a website, can go on an app and take the data they need and use it for their own business. It doesn't matter which industry. I believe that almost every industry can take advantage of space.
And what's the specific advantage? Let's say if I was looking for a vaccine or trying to research one, why would I need to go to space, and how would I benefit?
That's only, you can only take a benefit if it benefits from three main conditions: microgravity or zero gravity, some people say, deep vacuum, or extreme temperatures. That's something which we can't simulate on Earth because of or it's very expensive to simulate. So vacuum we can simulate. Zero gravity we can't simulate on Earth because of the physics laws, right? So, and zero gravity is the way how molecules are shaped, the way how liquids behave. So for example, if you want to build a geometrically oriented molecule of antibody treatment for cancer, that at some point it will collapse under gravity. But in space, it can grow bigger, more symmetrical, more pure. And that means, like, for example, if you translate it into the life of a patient, that you can actually have more concentrated medicine that they can take. You don't have to go to hospital to stay 3 hours under the IV drip, but you can actually do an injection at home in your living room. And it's also massive patent for pharmaceutical companies, plus revenues, right? So that's example where exactly we can take an advantage of, in space.
Right. And tell us about some of your key investments right now, and do they fit the thesis that you've been speaking about so far, or is it something different?
So the way how we look across the industry. So we look at the deep tech as well. So I like to look at the companies which will give 10x improvements for our civilization. So one of the companies which I think kind of similar to that is Xona Space Systems. It's a US-based company. So what they do is a next generation GPS. So it's like retranslation of signal from geo orbit to LEO orbit to Earth, right? So today, GPS is, we have a bottleneck. It's not accurate, it's 3-meter accuracy, it's not secure, it's easy to jump. And if you try to call Uber...
And someone might pull the plug on it.
Exactly. So it's geopolitics as well. If you try to call Uber in a big city, that's a nightmare, right? So that's what this company does, is they deliver 10-centimeter accuracy for any device, right? Imagine a chipset in your iPhone or, a drone or an IoT device, right? Which will have 10-centimeter accuracy, and it's secure, right? So I think half of the businesses we can imagine, right? So, all the robots, all the electric vehicles, everything will have just much better, much more efficient accuracy. But also think about the new generation of businesses which we can't imagine when this technology will exist. So that's exactly like the type of technologies which we like.
So this is give us another example?
Another example we have is a new material which will replace silicon on the top of solar panels. So silicon is approaching theoretical maximum of its efficiency, 29%. And so perovskite is a new material which is more efficient, more durable, and cheaper than silicon. So my conviction then, in 10 years from today, we're not going to see any silicon on the top of solar panels. We're going to see only perovskite. So that's an example of, it's changing the solar industry overall.
And you also have an investment in India, so tell us about that.
Yes, so I have invested as an angel investor in a company called Perovskite. So that's, so as of today, we have a lot of satellites monitoring different parts of the Earth. It's mainly land, but no one is monitoring oceans. And so many things happening in ocean: illegal fishing, oil spills, traffic management for ships and everything. But there's a huge commercial opportunity, but there's no images for that. So I think this is the first company, they're building that and they're doing very well. So they're ISRO the ex-ISRO, and so it's amazing to see that innovation happening in that, so kind of bridging space and oceans.
And what's the kind of time horizon? Because some of the concepts that you spoke of earlier, including data centers in space, that's a very long time horizon, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And some of course, seems to be much more in sight. So how is your fund and your approach to investing divided between the two?
So I think there's a difference between angel investment and venture capital investment, right? So I have a very strict and discipline in my fund. So we need to return money within 10 years, right? So like the last it has to be 10 years. So we look specifically at companies which will become commercially viable in the same period. So we need to look at companies which either go through IPO, M&A, or strategic acquisition by kind of, or like maybe private equity acquisition, right? So that's our the target, right? So it, I know there's a lot of philanthropists, a lot of people who like to support just science, and I think some individuals might have longer time horizons, but for me, it's 10 years. And by the way, this is a normal for traditional tech as well, right? So I think I read somewhere recently that we have saying that, you have to build unicorn in 7 years. In reality, the number is 16. So it's not different from kind of deep tech companies. Yeah, exactly. But the good thing is deep tech IRR traditionally is twice higher than traditional tech IRR.
Interesting. So you're a physicist turned investor. So tell us about one challenge that you've identified, or you identified many years ago, perhaps as a physicist, that you want to solve, or you feel the world should solve, and is perhaps still at the back of your mind.
I mean, the biggest, the thing which we don't understand today is what is our universe is made of. We don't understand 99%. We don't understand what's the dark energy, what's dark matter, right? This is far from the investment cycle. But I can see, people started thinking about, okay, new telescopes, new data. And by the way, data and AI is accelerating this area as well, very rapidly, right? So, we have people who are investing in telescopes, who are building focused research organizations to advancing that. But hopefully, one day, if we know what dark matter is, that might be, a new, advanced material startups and kind of range of startups. So let's see.
Right, and it eventually will lead to more startups and exciting ones. So a good note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me today. That was fun.